Walk into a modern furniture store, a design museum, or flip through the pages of an upscale home decor magazine, and you will inevitably encounter it. Clean lines, unadorned surfaces, perfect proportions, and almost luminous simplicity. It's furniture and design celebrated for its minimalism, its functionality, and its quiet, unassuming beauty. We call it Shaker style. It's an aesthetic that feels remarkably modern, influencing everything from Scandinavian design to minimalist art. We admire it for its elegance, its craftsmanship, its timeless appeal. We see it as the embodiment of good taste, of less is more. But what if I told you that the people who created this iconic style were anything but modern minimalists in their beliefs? What if I told you they were a radical, fringe religious sect who believed their leader was the female incarnation of Jesus Christ? That they practiced ecstatic, whirling dances that gave them their name? That they lived in strictly celibate, communist communities, believing sex was the root of all evil? And that their famous designs weren't born from an aesthetic theory, but from a profound theological conviction that work itself was worship, and that every object they made had to be perfect enough for the coming kingdom of God? The story behind Shaker design is far stranger, more radical, and more deeply religious than its simple surfaces suggest. It's a story of how one of America's most successful utopian experiments, founded on beliefs far outside the mainstream, accidentally created a design legacy that would outlive the faith itself. Today, we pull up a chair to uncover the hidden theology behind Shaker simplicity. This is the story of how celibate communists built a design empire. To understand the chair, the table, the simple oval box, we must first understand the extraordinary woman whose visions birthed the entire movement. Anne Lee. Anne Lee, later known to her followers as Mother Anne, was born into extreme poverty in Manchester, England in 1736. She was illiterate, worked in textile mills from a young age, and experienced a series of personal tragedies, including a forced marriage and the death of all 4 of her young children. These traumas led her to a profound spiritual crisis and a radical conviction that lust, the act of sexual intercourse, was the original sin of Adam and Eve, the root cause of all human suffering and separation from God. Around 1758, she joined a small, radical offshoot of the Quakers known as the Shaking Quakers or Shakers, led by Jane and James Wardley. This group practiced ecstatic worship, involving spontaneous, trembling, shouting, singing, dancing, and receiving spiritual gifts or prophecies. Anne Lee quickly became a prominent figure, known for the intensity of her spiritual experiences. During a period of imprisonment for disturbing the peace with their radical preaching, including publicly denouncing sexual intercourse, Anne Lee had a powerful vision. She claimed that Jesus Christ had appeared to her and revealed that he himself had embodied the male principle of God, but that the female principle of God's dual nature had now become incarnate in her. She was, in her understanding, the second coming of Christ, the female Messiah, ushering in the millennial kingdom of God. This was, needless to say, a radical and blasphemous claim. Upon her release, Mother Anne became the undisputed leader of the small Shaker group. Facing increasing persecution in England, she received another revelation in 1774: go to America. She and a tiny band of 8 followers, including her husband, who later left her, sailed to New York. After several years of struggle and obscurity, their message began to find fertile ground in the religiously charged atmosphere of revolutionary and post-revolutionary America. People were drawn to Mother Anne's charisma, her promises of salvation now, not just in the afterlife, and her radical vision of a new, pure way of life. The core tenets of Shaker belief, established by Mother Ann and elaborated by her successors like Joseph Meacham and Lucy Wright, were revolutionary. 1. God is dual-gendered, both male and female, father and mother. 2. Christ has come twice, first as Jesus, the male manifestation, second as Mother Ann Lee, the female manifestation. 3. Celibacy is essential. Sexual intercourse, even within marriage, was the root sin and must be completely renounced to enter the kingdom of God, which was already beginning in their communities. 4. Communal living. All property was held in common. Believers lived together as brothers and sisters in large families, striving for equality, though with distinct roles for men and women. They were essentially religious communists. 5. Confession of sins. Open confession to elders was required for spiritual purity. 6. Separation from the world. Shakers sought to create distinct, self-sufficient communities, limiting contact with the corrupting influences of the outside world. 7. Ongoing revelation. They believed God continued to speak through prophecy and spiritual gifts experienced during their ecstatic worship, the shaking, dancing, singing in tongues, receiving spiritual songs or drawings. This was not a gentle, quiet faith. It was radical, demanding, and utterly countercultural. And it was within this intense theological framework that their unique approach to work, and thus design, was forged. The Shakers didn't sit down and write a treatise on aesthetic theory. Their distinctive style emerged organically, almost inevitably, from their core religious beliefs and their communal way of life. Several key principles intertwined. 1. Work as worship. The most famous Shaker motto is hands to work, hearts to God. For the Shakers, work was not a chore, a burden, or merely a means to an economic end. It was a form of prayer, an act of worship, a way to build the kingdom of God on earth right now. They believed that every task, whether scrubbing a floor, weaving cloth, tending crops, or crafting a chair, should be done with diligence, focus, and perfection, as if being done directly for God. Laziness was a sin. Shoddy workmanship was an offense against God's perfection. This theological imperative drove their legendary craftsmanship and attention to detail. Everything had to be done right. 2. Simplicity as godliness. Mother Ann Lee famously taught, "Do all your work as though you had 1,000 years to live, and as you would if you knew you must die tomorrow." But she also preached vehemently against pride, vanity, and the accumulation of unnecessary worldly possessions. Beauty, for the Shakers, was found not in ornamentation or decoration, but in simplicity, order, and utility. Asterisk ornamentation was seen as prideful, drawing attention to the object and thus the maker rather than serving its purpose. It was associated with the deceit and vanity of the world they had left behind. Superfluous decoration was literally considered sinful. Asterisk honesty in materials and construction was paramount. Veneers that hid cheaper wood, or purely decorative elements that served no structural purpose, were seen as forms of dishonesty. The object should clearly reveal how it was made and what it was made of. 3. Function dictates. Form utility is beauty, flowing directly from the rejection of ornament was the principle that an object's purpose should determine its design. Every element should have a function. If it wasn't necessary, it shouldn't be there. This led to designs that were incredibly efficient, practical, and stripped down to their essential forms. As the Shaker saying goes, that which has in itself the highest use possesses the greatest beauty. Or, more famously, beauty rests on utility. This wasn't an aesthetic choice first, it was a theological and ethical one. For order and cleanliness as heavenly virtues, Shaker theology emphasized order, harmony, and cleanliness as reflections of God's perfect heaven. Their communal living spaces, housing dozens or even hundreds of people, also demanded extreme order and efficiency simply to function. This led to innovations like the famous peg rails installed around rooms, allowing chairs, clocks, and other items to be hung up off the floor for easy cleaning. Furniture was often designed to be lightweight and easily movable for cleaning or for clearing space for worship. The emphasis on cleanliness also influenced their preference for smooth, often lightly finished or painted surfaces that were easy to wipe down. 5. Communalism and efficiency. Living communally meant that furniture and tools needed to be durable, functional for many users, and efficient to produce, though always with care. This encouraged standardized designs, practicality, and ingenious solutions to everyday problems. Their celibacy also meant they didn't need furniture designed around the nuclear family like large marital beds, leading to unique forms tailored to their communal dormitories. Put these principles together: work as worship, demanding perfection; simplicity, rejecting worldly ornament; function dictating form; order, reflecting heaven; and communalism, demanding efficiency. And the distinctive Shaker aesthetic emerges not as a style consciously chosen, but as the natural, inevitable byproduct of a deeply held religious worldview. The beauty we admire was, for them, simply the outward expression of their faith made tangible. The result of this unique combination of radical theology and disciplined work was, perhaps surprisingly, incredible innovation and worldly success. Far from being backward-looking Luddites, the Shakers were ingenious problem solvers and pioneers in technology and business. Their focus on efficiency and function led them to invent or significantly improve numerous everyday items. The flat broom replacing the inefficient round broom, the common spring-loaded clothespin, metal pen nibs, innovations in washing machine technology, the circular saw, highly efficient farm layouts and techniques. Their reputation for honesty, quality, and fair dealing made their products highly sought after by the outside world. Shaker villages became centers of thriving industries. Furniture, their iconic chairs, especially the ladderback, tables, cabinets, and oval boxes were renowned for their durability and simple elegance. They sold these widely. Seeds. The Shakers pioneered the commercial seed industry in America, selling high-quality seeds in labeled packets through catalogs, a major innovation. Herbal medicines. They cultivated and sold a wide variety of medicinal herbs. Textiles and crafts. They produced high-quality woven goods, baskets, and other crafts. By the mid-19th century, the Shakers reached their peak, with an estimated 4,000 to 6,000 members living in around 19 major communities from Maine to Kentucky. They were one of the most successful, long-lasting, and respected utopian communal experiments in American history. Their villages were models of cleanliness, order, and prosperity. There is a profound paradox here. A community founded on rejecting the world became famous and respected by the world for the quality of their worldly goods. A faith that demanded absolute simplicity and humility produced objects now considered high art and sold in expensive galleries. And a people focused entirely on preparing for the next life created some of the most practical, enduring designs for this life. Despite their success, the Shaker way of life contained the seeds of its own decline. The very principle that defined their radical purity celibacy was also their demographic Achilles heel. Without natural reproduction, the Shakers depended entirely on conversion and adoption to sustain their numbers. This worked well during the religious fervor of the early and mid-19th century. But as American society became more industrialized, more urban, and more secular after the Civil War, the appeal of the strict, demanding, celibate, communal Shaker life dwindled dramatically. Fewer people were willing to make such a radical commitment. Orphanages also became more institutionalized, reducing the number of children available for the Shakers to raise. Furthermore, the very industrialization that the Shakers initially navigated so well eventually became overwhelming competition. Mass-produced factory goods began to undercut the market for their handmade crafts and furniture. The spiritual intensity also seemed to wane. The era of ecstatic visions and charismatic leadership largely passed. While the commitment to quality and order remained, the fervent, world-denying faith that originally fueled it began to cool. One by one, Shaker communities dwindled and closed throughout the late 19th and 20th centuries. Today, only one active Shaker village remains, Sabbath Day Lake in Maine, home to just a handful of members. The faith itself is on the verge of extinction. And yet, while the Shaker faith has all but disappeared, the Shaker aesthetic is more popular and influential than ever. Their furniture designs are reproduced, celebrated, and collected. Their principles of simplicity, functionality, and craftsmanship resonate deeply with modern sensibilities, influencing countless designers. We are left with a fascinating legacy and a profound question. The Shakers created objects of enduring beauty and utility, but they did so not because they were trying to be good designers in the modern sense. They did so because they were trying to be good Shakers. Their aesthetics were inseparable from their radical theology. Their belief in a dual God, their practice of celibacy, their commitment to communalism, their understanding of work as worship. So, this brings us to the final debate. Can we, and should we, truly appreciate the beauty and genius of Shaker design without acknowledging, or even grappling with, the radical, strange, demanding, and now nearly extinct faith that produced it? Is the Shaker aesthetic ultimately separable from the Shaker theology? Can we admire the simple chair just as a beautiful object? Or does understanding the complex web of beliefs about celibacy, communism, ecstatic worship, and perfectionism that led to its creation fundamentally enrich, or perhaps even complicate, our appreciation? Does the beauty somehow depend on the weirdness? What do we lose when we admire the form but forget the faith? Let me know your thoughts, respectfully, in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into the surprising connection between radical faith and timeless design fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that uncovers the hidden histories behind our beliefs, practices, and even our furniture. Thanks for watching.